Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Really, there's so much going on in Canadian politics. Every single day, there has new advancements, new things happening. I'll tell you about some stuff that's already being introduced that is just shocking on the tail of what's been introduced so far. What's already happened? They've used this crisis since COVID. Every day brings more unbelievable overreach from this government at all levels. It's really, really quite something, and not a good something. It's very, very bad, very, very bad indeed. But first, don't forget to join the email list. I send out a weekly email, and I get emails periodically from people saying, "Add me to your list." I usually do, but sometimes I'm a little late at doing that. Sometimes I'll send the newsletter and then be like, oh, I forgot to add that. But anyway, regardless, you can add yourself to the list at CanadaReport.co and on this sign up form here. And CanadaPoly.com has a similar sign up form. And don't forget to join the forums as well. We've got lots of conversations happening there. It's quite robust. It's quite good. I'm quite happy with it. All right. Here is Mark Friesen, and Mark Friesen's a PPC candidate. He ran last time. He has his windows regularly smashed on his truck, and that's not good. It didn't used to be that way in Canada. If you had a disagreement with a politician, even if you really thought they were really terrible, nobody would smash their windows. People would just be like, "We disagree with you, sir. Have a good day. Excuse me." That's what Canada used to be like, right? And now, man, I mean, Mark Friesen is targeted, and if you're targeted, well, again, not good. It's not good. It's not good what's happened. The fracturing and shredding of the social fabric of our country, not good. It's not good. And Justin Trudeau is the person who presided over that, not Stephen Harper. It wasn't like during Stephen Harper's era, if you smashed a car window, people would be like, bravo, right? That Stephen Harper is terrible, right? No, that wouldn't happen, right? But here we are, and people think that this is okay. Now, this is all to distract from the fact that the people in office are using this crisis to push UN agenda. It's not Canadians' agenda. It's not taxpayer-influenced agenda. In fact, they don't care what we think. They care what the UN thinks. They want to have UN-compliant laws within Canada because we're a UN province. Global governance, everyone. This is what's happening. Global governance is just another way of saying NW something. I can't remember what that last letter is. Anyway, Mark Friesen says, bills being pushed through just under COVID alone. C6, conversion therapy, UN compliant. C7, euthanasia, UN compliant. C10, censorship, UN compliant. C12, net zero, UN compliant. C15, UN DRIP, UN compliant. C273, universal basic income, UN compliant. Order in council, gun grab, UN compliant. How do you like global governance so far? Does saying global governance make it more palatable? Possibly. Maybe. France plans to reduce the number of animals in order to achieve climate goals. You could read this article. It's in a different language. Google Translate is my friend in this one. It says, in order to become climate neutral by 2050, animal populations are to be reduced in France. The government plans 25% fewer cattle and 30% fewer pigs to cut CO2 emissions by 46%. They're using COVID. They're using COVID to push collectivism. And they're using collectivism to say, if you cared about the planet, you wouldn't eat meat. And so we're going to stop producing meat in order to facilitate your refusal to eat meat. The other thing I heard, and this is I have a video to corroborate this. Maybe I'll post this on the forums. I'll post this on its own thread in the federal version of the forums, just talking about meat. And he's a Chinese scientist saying that if you get stung by a specific tick, it can make you feel ill and be allergic to, intolerant of eating meat, right? Just like he compares it to being lactose intolerant. And I thought, isn't that something? There's scientists who are looking at exploiting a reaction to socially engineer society to eat less meat. I'm floored. I'm absolutely just, my jaw is on the floor. And we haven't even started the show yet. This is just the stuff that I wanted to tell you about that maybe you missed, maybe you didn't put together. Okay, it's free speech. Let's talk about free speech. Free speech in Canada, I think, is the cornerstone of our democracy. Without free speech, we don't have democracy. Without free speech, we live in a different country. Welcome to a different country, right? Canada is a distant memory now. Canada that we lived in, I guess Stephen Harper is the last prime minister of that Canada, because Justin Trudeau has fundamentally and forever changed the face of Canada. And it looks like, as we get deeper into today's show, he's changing the face of the power of Parliament, making maybe the Liberals the supreme commanders of Canada for the rest of forever long that lasts, I guess, as these things go, right? But it seems very, very interesting, the moves being made. And I'll show you what I mean. But first, let's talk about free speech, Bill C-10. Senator Pamela Wallin says the Liberal government has attempted to secretly restrict free speech in Bill C-10. There was a clause in the original bill that exempted user-generated content from censorship. They deliberately removed that protection and refused to explain how your tweets or podcasts or Facebook posts would be protected from big tech or the government's prying eyes. They shut down proper study in the House of Commons, passed a bill in the wee hours of the morning, and demanded that the Senate pass it immediately. We said no and stalled it. But today, those of us who opposed this bill ran out of options to stop Bill C-10. It will be debated in the Senate and sent to committee early next week. The committee will not reconvene until the fall. So the good news is that when the PM calls his election, this bill dies, thankfully. They will need to try again, and perhaps with all the public outcry, they will understand that Canadians believe in free speech and vehemently oppose any attempts at censorship. So I said the other day, Pamela Wallin was saying, we'll do everything in our power. And they ran out of everything in their power in like 15 hours. Right? It was like, okay, so we've done everything we can and we lost. So, right? So that Liberal majority in the Senate, not so good, right? Stephen Harper's refusal to appoint anybody to, be that sober second thought. And my goodness, when you score a goalie goal, right? When you score a goal in a very unlikely situation, right? Like you score with your goalie, maybe on a net that has a goalie in it, right? That's unlikely. Not likely at all. But you take the shot, maybe you get it, right? And right? Or even at the buzzer, right? You shoot at the net and maybe the goalie is not paying attention because it's the end of the game and you get one in. You take the shot. And I think that's what they did here. And they thought, yeah, we can get this through. Sure, we can get this through. Before the next election, why not? And man, so naive, I guess. So naive. But I guess we were too naive. All of Canada was too naive because we just let all this happen. Like, we just let all this happen, slid right by. We have no way to do anything about this. No recall, no way to stop it. Nothing. Sorry about your luck. Free speech is over, and the Canada that you knew is dead. Stephen Taylor, and he's got ties to the Conservative Party. He was a former senior political advisor to the former leader to Scheer of the CPC. But anyway, he says Justin Trudeau is suing the Speaker, challenging parliamentary supremacy. We'll talk about that in a minute. He was found in contempt of Parliament. He won't appoint a Governor General. Has our top military leadership in shambles. Yeah, the Me Too movement that destroyed the Canadian military, and wants to control what you see online. Does this sound like the Canada that you grew up in? Does this sound like the Canada that you want to leave to your children? No, right? Like run, and shop South American countries or Central American countries. It seems better. It seems more balanced. The dictators there seem more sane, right? Like, oh, they'll let you go to church, right? Like, holy cow. Anyway, the Government of Canada says, the Government of Canada takes action to protect Canadians against hate speech and hate crimes. This is yesterday. Ottawa, Ontario, Department of Justice Canada, Department of Heritage, Canadian Heritage and Public Safety Canada. Canadians expect to be free and safe from hate speech and hate crimes online and offline. The Government of Canada is committed to keeping all Canadians safe while also protecting their rights and freedoms. It's for your safety, comrade. We're doing this to help you, right? We're removing your ability to speak online so that you don't say anything that we find illegal and we have to put you in jail for. We're preventing you from going to jail for your safety, okay? So if we let the internet stay free and you say something that we decide is illegal after you say it, well, we can't stop ourselves from putting you in jail. So we better censor the internet for your safety, right? You want to spend time at home. We want you to spend forever at home. So if you say some things that make us take you out of your home and put you in jail, that's on you, right? We're doing this for you, comrade. This is where we're at. This is official, man. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. The government, okay. Canadians expect to be safe. The Government of Canada is committed to keeping all Canadians safe while also protecting their rights and freedoms. Yeah, right. Sure, I believe that. Yeah. Today, the Honourable David Lametti, Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, along with the Honourable Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of Canadian Heritage, and the Honourable Bill Blair, Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, announced actions the Government of Canada is taking to better protect Canadians from hate speech and online harms. As part of this approach, the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada introduced amendments to the Criminal Code, the Canadian Human Rights Act, and the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Too many people and communities in Canada are harmed and victimized by hate speech, which is often amplified and spread online. They don't have any examples of this. This is absolute nonsense. Online hate can turn into offline hate with devastating impacts on communities and families. Again, are there any examples of this? Where? Please give them to me. We have a responsibility to victims to take action to combat hate online and continue to build a more inclusive Canada. Just, if you're talking inclusive, we mean positions and stories we like, and anything we don't like is alt-right white supremacy. And there's no room for them here. Inclusivity. Right? Hypocritical. The proposed legislation takes an important step towards creating a safe online environment that protects all Canadians from hate speech and hate crimes. This initiative will also help ensure that individuals have access to appropriate tools and resources to seek recourse against purveyors of hate speech and perpetrators of hate crimes. The Government of Canada recognizes the importance of freedom of expression for all Canadians and is taking a balanced and targeted approach to tackle the most extreme and harmful speech. Bullshit. Liars. The bill aims to amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to define a new discriminatory practice of communicating hate speech online and to provide individuals with additional remedies to address hate speech. This is going to be such a wide net. They're going to be like, if you state something that the Government of Canada defines as hate speech, blah, blah, blah. And they say, okay, add a definition of hatred to Section 319 in the Criminal Code based on the Supreme Court of Canada's decisions, and create a new peace bond in the Criminal Code designed to prevent hate propaganda offenses and hate crimes from being committed, and make related amendments to the Youth Criminal Justice Act. They are criminalizing speech. And the only way to identify a problem is to speak about what the problem is. And if you are not allowed to speak about certain things, then you cannot identify certain problems. This is insidious and evil and is not backing freedom of speech, is not backing democracy, is not backing anything to do with the system that we once had in Canada. We don't have it anymore. It's gone. It's gone. We're under martial law until they get this bullshit passed. But it's bullshit. It's garbage. And this is tyranny. This is out communism, and with people thinking that, oh, they're protecting our free speech and they're protecting us from hatred too, right? You idiots, you fools, absolute fools if you fall for this trash. Anyway, that's what the Government of Canada is doing. Welcome to tyranny. I mean, welcome. We've been there for a while. And they're slowly making it so that this is building the infrastructure to take care of people like me and Ezra Levant and Cian Bext and Sheila Gunn Reid and all of the right-wing people who speak anything that the government doesn't like, right? If you call Justin Trudeau potato-headed Justin Trudeau, well, they might just say that's hate speech. It has nothing to do with hate speech. It's political commentary. But that doesn't matter. That distinction doesn't matter because of everything else that's happened, right? So, speaking of other things that have happened within this realm of free speech, surgeon fired by College of Medicine for voicing safety concerns about COVID shots for children. They fired him. Surgeon fired by College of Medicine for voicing safety concerns, right? So Saskatchewan, the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, represents Dr. Francis Christian, clinical professor of general surgery at the University of Saskatchewan and a practicing surgeon in Saskatoon. Dr. Christensen was called into a meeting today, suspended from all teaching responsibilities effective immediately, and fired from his position with the University of Saskatchewan as of September 2021. And here is a recording of the meeting between Dr. Christensen and Dr. Smith, the Dean of Medicine at the University of Saskatchewan College of Medicine, and Dr. Susan Shaw, the Chief Medical Officer of the Saskatchewan Health Authority, and Dr. Brian Ulmer, Head of the Department of Surgery at the Saskatchewan College of Medicine. So you can listen to that, and you can make your own conclusions about what's going on here. But this guy probably doesn't deserve to be fired. I'm not going to go through the things that he stated because this is on the YouTube part of the show, and YouTube will get mad at me. But regardless, I think that it's worth knowing that speech across all disciplines is being curtailed. And this is not guarding your right to freedom of expression. This is not guarding your right. This guy's a doctor, right? If he says, listen, I probably wouldn't do that. Maybe people should listen and not have professional bodies silence him. That would probably be bad. That would probably be a bad outcome, right? Silence the doctors who are whistleblowing on the negative outcomes that are potentially coming up for people, right? No, they don't want to hear about that. Okay. How about the documents and the Winnipeg lab? Right, the Winnipeg lab had two scientists walked out, and Cheng and Qi, but I'm saying the Qi one wrong. And the government is asking, the Canada-China Relations Committee from the Standing Committee in Parliament is asking for the documents. 4 times they've demanded these documents. And so the government and the Speaker of the House did his job, and they brought the president of PHAC, Ian Stewart, to the bar in the House of Commons to chastise him, to shame him, publicly shame him for not doing what he was told, saying the Parliament has supremacy and can compel documents, full stop. The sitting government is not Parliament. If Parliament says we want this document, Parliament is supreme, not the government. But the government, Trudeau's government, is taking the Speaker of the House to court. Breaking, says Garnet Genius. The Liberal government is taking the Speaker to court for doing his job and enforcing the will of the House of Commons, all to keep secret documents about the Winnipeg lab. This is an unprecedented attack on parliamentary democracy. They also told a federal judge to go F herself when she ruled that she would examine the government's evidence for the gun ban. They declared the evidence so super secret and a threat to national security that not even a federal judge can see it. Right, and I'm going to show you the gun ban one in a minute, but this is worth going through. David Rakish says, "Hey, Justin Trudeau and David Lametti, Constitutional Law 101. Parliament is immune from judicial intervention. The judiciary does not have any jurisdiction over Parliament and parliamentary business operations. Case law Duffy and Viad, right, 2005 and 2020. This is and this is Michelle Rempel saying." Well, exactly what I just told you, but I think it's worth going through. So hold on a second. Let's let this load. Ooh, is it fast? Oh, it's fast today. Michelle Rempel says, the government of Canada is taking the Speaker of the House to court to seal the National Microbiology Lab docs. Is that even possible? Parliament is supreme. Also, what the heck is in these documents? What do you think is in these documents? We're talking about... Hold on. I've got more to show you. Then we'll speculate. Okay, it's too fun to not show you all of this before we speculate. Okay, sorry about this. I jumped the gun a bit. Oh my goodness. Jumped the gun. Here is the Prime Minister of Canada is taking the Speaker of the House to court. Now we get to see how well the system works. Okay, so where's China? Oh, I moved the China thing. Hold on. Okay, so here's the National Post reporting. Fired Winnipeg lab scientist listed as co-inventor on 2 Chinese government patents. Okay, the Federal Public Service Inventions Act says a government employee cannot file a patent outside the country without the minister's permission. The high-profile scientist who was fired from Canada's top infectious disease lab collaborated with Chinese government scientists on inventions registered in Beijing but closely related to her federal job, intellectual property documents indicate. Qi, and I'm sure I've got this wrong, Qi, who's also under investigation by the RCMP, is listed as an inventor on 2 patents filed by official agencies in China in recent years. One of the patents, listing her as a co-inventor with 5 other people, was filed with the Chinese National Intellectual Property Administration by the country's National Institute for Drug and Food Control. It describes an inhibitor for Ebola virus. Qi won fame in Canada for helping develop a treatment for Ebola, though the Chinese drug seems different. Seems different how, National Post? Did you call them up? You say, this is what we've got about this Ebola treatment. Can you tell us how it's different? Sure you did. Okay. The other patent includes Qi and 6 collaborators as inventors, was registered by the Inspection and Quarantine Technology Center of Fujian Province, and I've got that wrong, sorry about that. It's for a detection method or test for Marburg, a hemorrhagic fever similar to Ebola. Neither Chinese patent makes any mention of a Canadian government employer. The Federal Public Servants Inventions Act says that the federal government owns all inventions made by public servants that resulted from or is connected with his duties or employment, or her duties or employment. And the legislation says the government employee cannot file a patent outside the country without the minister's permission. Mark Mark Johnson, a spokesman for Public Health Agency of Canada, refused to comment on whether Chi had obtained such permissions. Asked if the agency which administers the lab was even aware of the patents, he said, "We cannot comment on this matter." Chi could not be reached about the issue and did not respond to previous phone messages left by the Post. Well, she's under RCMP investigation and also probably back in homeland China, right? Like, they were walked out by the RCMP in 2018. Oh, the National Post tried to reach out, but we got a busy signal. Yeah, okay, guys, sure. Right? Like, what garbage our media is. What absolute garbage. National Post says, this is a little bit on the nose, though. If her contract permitted it, it would be a scandal. If the contract didn't permit it, and they ignored the contract, that would be a scandal. If the contract didn't even turn its attention to this, that'd be a scandal too. So if they did it, that's a paddling. If they ignored it, that's a paddling. If they didn't even think of it, oh, you bet that's a paddling. Right? And this guy says, Rosemary Fry, so I don't know if there's any connection to Viva Fry there, says 2 Chinese nationals taking info from the lab. He doesn't mention their work is on the adrenovirus platform for vaccines, which China then used for its COVID vaccine. It's info Trudeau doesn't want the public to know. Well, there you go. There you go, right? Wild and crazy times. So what do you think? What's your speculation about all of this, right? What's in those docs, right? What in the world is in those documents? I have no idea. But they are certainly trying to hide everything they can about this, right? And making sure that parliamentary supremacy, like the parliament that we have had in Canada running things, yeah, maybe not so much when national security is involved, says the Trudeau government, except that no, that's not appropriate. Parliamentary supremacy. You can't fight this war, Parliament. We've got to fight it, and you can't ask us any questions. Also, we need a blank check. $2 or $3 trillion, please. Thank you very much. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely, it's crazy. Here's the government refusing to comply with the order, the court order for cabinet docs for the order in council about the guns, right? The Liberal government has taken steps to duck court orders seeking hundreds of documents that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his cabinet relied on to ban hundreds of thousands of semi-automatic rifles and other weapons last year. In a surprise move, 10 days before a deadline to produce the material, the government served notice this week that it will not comply with the federal court order to provide cabinet documents and records behind the sudden imposition of the sweeping firearm ban. Instead, the government has turned to a section of the Canada Evidence Act that can prevent access by courts to cabinet documents, memos, and other material to keep information from cabinet deliberations confidential. The move sparked a storm among firearm owners and groups who began filing court challenges soon after the Liberals enacted the ban without notice on May 1st, 2020. The requests for government documents behind the ban were filed early in the case, and the government denied the requests last September on cabinet confidence grounds. So they don't want to produce documents for anything, and they're saying it's national security for everything. So when it's always national security and there's no accountability and no way to demand accountability, do you live in a free democratic society? Do you? Do you think you do? Okay, we've done China. Pilots. I tagged this yesterday and I thought this is something interesting. British Airways had 4 pilots pass away in the course of a week. And I reported on this last week, and I reported on Air Canada pilots who've had the jab, saying that they had difficulty flying as soon as they got up to altitude, pressure in their head, pressure in different areas, and they had to land. Another Air Canada pilot had had a blood pressure or a vein burst or something to that effect. Something happened, and they're in the hospital, and issues abound. So I tagged this and I thought, this is interesting. They're canceling all these flights, eh? American Airlines cancels hundreds of flights due to staffing crunch, maintenance issues. But hold on a second. Aren't there a bunch of pilots who are sitting home waiting for work? Right? Hasn't the tourism industry been shut down for like a year? I personally know 3 pilots, and all of them are saying, if we don't get back to like normal soon, things are going to not be good for this industry that I've spent my life in. And that's not good. Like, that's really not good. You don't want industries to fail, right? Like, because spinning them up is much more difficult than just keeping them going, right? It's the reason it's the reason the United States and Canada too bailed at the auto industry in 2008, right? Because if all of those people lost their jobs and the whole, right, then starting all of that up again, ramping all of that up again, very difficult, very difficult. So American Airlines, hundreds of flights, staffing crunch. Aren't there a whole bunch of people just waiting to come back to fly? Can't find them? What's going on? Here is the follow-up. Breaking inside source tells me that 60 to 80 American airline commercial pilots are down and disabled due to COVID injection injuries, working to get the source to share more. Wild. Isn't that wild? I mean, like, I have no idea what kind of, if that's real, if it's fake news, if it's a cover, or if this one's the cover, right? Who knows what's real and what's not? American Airlines cancels, due to staffing crunch. Maybe there is a staffing crunch. Maybe they're so busy, it's unmanageable with all of those furloughed pilots. We can't call enough people back. Everybody's busy. They're all golfing, right? They're super busy and they're not interested in. You want them to go and fly planes now? They've been off for a year. Like, they're busy. Do you believe that? Okay. I don't know. I find it a little hard to believe. Just like I find this hard to believe. Okay. Yesterday I came across, I came across this, and I suppose this is the, according to Pundit Class, and I don't know how to verify this, but this is the ground radar that they're using to verify graves. This is the evidence. He says the remains of 215 children were found at the Indian residential school in Kamloops. Here's the evidence. Some of them are as young as 3 years old, right? Like, do you see anything? Reflection from known graves, right? There you go. That's it. Okay. I guess, right? So when we use this evidence to say that Canada is a hateful, genocidal country with zero evidence and context, I have a problem with that, right? Here's an MPP saying truth-telling stories that governments never believed. Governments cannot put a number on these searches. Hurt, sorrow, heartbreak, anger. These are some emotion of Indigenous people across Canada. Again, we are united in grief. Saskatchewan First Nations announced hundreds of unmarked graves found at former residential school. But I just looked up radar, right? So this is another ground radar find. Earlier this month, they started using ground penetrating radar to locate unmarked graves. But there's no context to this. This isn't like a slam dunk. We've found bodies, we've excavated them, we know that these are horrific murders done by evil people. They don't have any of that. They're making all of that up, right? And they're being reinforced by people like the MP who tweeted this out, by irresponsible news that reinforces this fallacy. It's wrong. It's wrong. They're lying, and they're doubling down and hoping that your lack of knowledge about what actually was found and the media's push to say this is what was found will just fill in the gaps. And most people do. That's how it works. That's how you fill in, because you have to have a coherent story, right? And so, like, if you hear kind of news snippets, you piece it all together and you tell yourself the things that you don't know in between. You fill it in until you hear what actually happened, right? And so we've got a whole bunch of people believing Canada is an evil, genocidal country that killed a whole bunch of children. Maybe, but didn't kids used to die of disease a lot? Didn't disease go through residential schools a lot? Wasn't the Catholic Church in charge of the residential schools until the 70s? Are any of these graves post-1970? Questions abound, right? Context abound. It needs to be talked about, but it's not. This is the insidious nature. This is hate speech, right? Oh, these questions are hateful, right? You're being aggressive and hostile. Am I an aggressive and hostile person? Well, don't get me angry, but still. I'm not aggressive and hostile because I find that using words is much more effective, and using powerful words and effective words and words that have oomph is much more effective, I think. And so I structure my arguments in a way that is impactful, but I don't find myself, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I am aggressive, maybe I am hostile, but if I'm aggressive and hostile in the face of people attempting to force people to vaccinate children or forcing people to follow rules that they can't back up with science or that have been disproven by science, I have a problem with that, and I'll talk about it. And if that's aggressive and hostile, well, I mean, then you should understand that the actions of forcing medical interventions on unwilling population and forcing suffocating devices on people, that's an aggressive act too. So maybe my aggression is in response to aggression, right? Maybe it's equal. Maybe it's a match, right? Instead of me being more aggressive, maybe it's just as aggressive as people have treated the population and me by extension. Toronto Sun says, being friends with Trudeau, this is the governing section, being friends with Trudeau appears to pay very well. Sure it does. Yeah. I mean, I hope people aren't, look at just Seamus O'Regan. Like, that's paid off in spades, right? That guy would never be in such a high-paying position with so much responsibility unless he was riding this guy's coattails. And that's just, that doesn't look good on Canadians, really. Anyway, regardless. A story that started out as just the government giving money to a friendly firm has grown into something much more. Political intrigue, personal relationships, and apparent benefit from being very close to Justin Trudeau. It turns out that the firm at the center of a controversy on Parliament Hill hasn't just been getting taxpayer dollars from federal coffers, they've also been paid to help Liberal politicians from the Ontario Treasury. Data Sciences Inc., a firm owned by a close friend of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, was contacted by the Ontario Liberal Party and paid hundreds of thousands of dollars via taxpayer funds over a period of 5 years. Data Science is owned by Tom Pitfield, one of Trudeau's friends since childhood. The firm's former president, Azam Ishmael, has been national director of the Federal Liberal Party since 2017. He also held various positions with the Federal Ontario Liberal Parties on voter identification and digital platforms. A total of $800,308 of taxpayer money was paid to Data Sciences between 2014 and the 2018-19 fiscal year when the Liberals lost power. The payments were made from the Ontario Legislative Assembly. These are the provincial Liberals, by the way. The payments were made from the Ontario Legislative Assembly to the firm and were listed as caucus support for the Liberals. The connections between the firm and the Liberal Party came to light earlier this week when the Globe and Mail first reported that more than $30,000 was paid by federal Liberal MPs to the firm. That amount is from fourth quarter filings by individual MPs from the 2021 fiscal year. According to the sources, federal Liberals have been using the firm Data Sciences since at least 2016, if not earlier. A total of 149 Liberal MPs, or 97% of the party's caucus, have signed up for contracts with the firm. The Liberals say it's for constituency services, though some MPs aren't sure what they got for the money. The connections between Pitfield, Trudeau, and the Liberals run very deep. Pitfield's father, Michael, was the clerk of the Privy Council, top civil servant in the country under Pierre Trudeau. It was through this close connection that Pitfield and Trudeau became friends, with a bond that has lasted to this day. Canada 2020 has been described by Maclean's magazine as the progressive think tank that really runs Canada. It was founded by Pitfield. It only gets to run Canada if he keeps Trudeau in power, which helps keep taxpayer money flowing to companies like Data Science and think tanks like Canada 2020. Asked about all this in the House of Commons, Trudeau called it an unfair attack that prompted the Conservative leader Aaron O'Toole to hold up contracts between Data Science and the offices of two ministers, O'Regan and Mark Miller. So there you go. If you're a buddy of Trudeau, you can create a company that doesn't really do anything and gets paid by all of the MPs a whole bunch of money to help with their constituent services, right? What do? Oh yeah, hi. Your constituent's feeling very good today. See you later. Bye. Done. Job done. $100,000, please. Here is Mr. Polyev. He goes, this is a 38-minute speech. I have not been able to go through the speech yet. The speaker must find the government breached the most ancient parliamentary rule. Only the Commons can approve taxes. Printing money to fund government spending and make consumers pay higher inflation is a tax that the House never authorized. Yeah, I don't know what happens if hyperinflation hits. Like, if hyperinflation hits and we have an election and the Trudeau government gets like a majority, what happens then? Right? Oh, we used to be able to afford a house for $100,000 and now we can't afford a loaf of bread. Yay. I mean, you pay off your house quick, but right? Like if you can't eat, it's no use, right? So that's not so good. Trading economies, all sorts of stuff. But my issue is how does that work? How does that work? I guess in an overwhelming victory, Dominion doesn't work unless you have a ground game ready to back it up, right? But I don't know. How does that work? You get the conservative, and I mean, even if we get the conservatives, okay, what's different? Well, I don't understand fundamentally what Aaron O'Toole would do differently, because it feels like they'd be just as slimy and they'd be more bold to do conservative things. And the conservative things traditionally have been limiting free speech and all of the same stuff that Trudeau is gleefully pushing through right now anyway. So I'm skeptical that it'll be any different. Anyway, I think that the inflationary rate is incredible. I think that most Canadians don't care. They don't understand what's happening. I think that it's too far. It takes too much explanation, and most people don't have the time or the patience to understand it. And because of that, we are marching very quickly to a situation, I think a tipping point where like something's going to happen. There'll be a crisis, and then the rescue will be, well, now we can be a UN province and we won't have to worry about all this hard budgeting stuff or something. That's, I don't know, speculation. Michael Chong asks a very, very pertinent question.
Mr.
And I'm going to play all of it because it's important, and I think that he's right. What's the point of all this if Trudeau could just unilaterally act as a dictator, right? If the votes of the parliament don't matter, then why are we spending money on it? $5 billion on Centre Block? Sure, $5 billion. Totally need it. Anyway, here's MP Chong.
Mr. Speaker, the pandemic has laid bare the state of our institutions. There is no Governor General because of scandal. 8 senior leaders of the armed forces have resigned or been forced out. We have military procurement systems that cannot procure, and we have payroll systems that cannot pay. We have a government that thought it appropriate a year ago to introduce legislation that would have suspended the power of Parliament over taxation and spending until the end of this calendar year. A government that prorogued Parliament to shut down committee investigations. A government that continues to defy 4 orders of this House and its committee to hand over documents related to serious breaches at the Winnipeg lab that is now preventing this Parliament from doing its job. The government is in contempt of Parliament. The government does not deserve another mandate. The government must go.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, the pandemic has laid bare the state of our institutions.
I think he's exactly right. If you look at what's going on, the arrogance of most people is, and the sunk cost of this, of COVID, of the response to COVID. We've got judges in the Skelly case saying these guys, these yahoos, can't bring challenge to the whole response Ontario did. It's not appropriate, but it is appropriate. And when we've got all of these people willing to protect the bad policies that got us into the mess that we're currently in, then I don't see a path to fixing this, right? It's a very, very concerning situation, and like when the public is being led down the garden path, misled by the media, by some doctors, by the silencing of doctors who would speak out, by the discrediting of other doctors who would speak out. We're going to talk about Dr. Bridle in a minute, and the inventor of the mRNA vaccination technology, who's saying that what's happening here is not right. When all of that taken together, everything over the last 15 months needs to be examined with a fine-tooth comb. Everything. You can't just say, you know what, we can't look at that. That's in the past, and whatever happened, and here we are now. But that's what they're going to try and push through. They're going to get to September, lock us down again, and they're going to try and push this through, go through an election, and so on. And as soon as you hit an election, it validates it. If Trudeau wins an election here, it validates everything that he's done, and he comes back and he pushes through. It'll be a majority. And he'll come back and he'll push through the awful speech garbage that he wants to pass. He will. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it all falls down like a ton of bricks. I hope it all collapses. House of Cards, the whole thing. I hope it all crashes down. Not our economy. I don't want that. I like to eat, right? But like this farce can't continue. There's something wrong, and a lot of people are seeing there's something wrong, and it cannot continue. Okay, public health is